I was the regional director of the Steelworkers Union and a leader for over 30 years in that union, one of the most energy-intensive unions in the United States. As was mentioned, we are today 10 organizations, 8 unions, 2 environmental NGOs representing 8.5 million US citizens. But we didn't try to solve all issues. Instead, we focused on 4 key areas of agreement that were essential to advancing our joint agenda. Those were, as has been mentioned, the importance of finding economic opportunity inside environmental challenges. So specifically, we saw in clean energy and climate change solutions the opportunity to rebuild the American economy. Secondly, we came together around expanding worker rights, both in the US and internationally. Third, we believe that there is another unsustainable aspect of the global economy in addition to our economics, our environment, and our energy, and that is the current global trading system, which likewise is unsustainable. And finally, we believe strongly in trying to remove toxics from both workplaces and communities. The conflict between jobs and a clean environment is as old as environmental legislation in the United States. The slide in front of you shows one of the most important of those conflicts dating back to 1975. At the very time I entered the Steelworkers Union, this was over the pollution of a large iron ore mining operation in northern Minnesota, went to the United States Supreme Court over shutting down that operation and trying to clean up the discharge that you can see into public waters. In fact, we found over that 20 or 30-year experience from 1970 to 1990 that environmental investments were not destroying companies. In fact, they were a key to long-term economic success. I cite as an example frequently what happened in 1990 when new clean air laws were passed in the United States. U.S. steel companies predicted it would result in massive job loss and the export of U.S. steel jobs if legislation was passed cleaning up U.S. coke ovens. That law passed, our union supported it, and just the opposite was the result. 10 years later, U.S. coke production was at 98% of what it was before the laws were changed. And in 2002, when world coke prices rose 450%, the fact that these environmental investments had been made in U.S. coke ovens was one of the prime reasons why U.S. steel industry remained economically competitive. So the strong lesson that our union learned and that we taught our members was that environmental investments mean 3 things. Number 1, energy efficiency improvements always come with environmental improvements and waste reduction. Number 2, that means competitive improvement and advantage. Number 3, in a global economy, that means job preservation. So we came to believe that it's no longer a question of good jobs or a clean environment. In today's world, it's both or neither. And that has been the essential lesson that the Blue-Green Alliance has tried to teach to its members. Consequently, we have come to the belief that an unusual partnership, which there are few of anywhere in the world, results in an unusual capacity to create change in societies. And so by forming the Blue-Green Alliance and bringing historic foes into alignment with each other, we created a virtual cycle that I want to describe briefly as to how it works in the United States to promote change. First of all, we need policy development, sound policies that link environmental performance to economic development. In some parts of the world, I've found that that is a job that people still strongly resist. They prefer to see environmental improvement separate from economic development. We need to resist that and specifically develop policies such as we've done with the Obama administration that link the creation of the next generation of manufacturing jobs to climate change solutions, such as we did with this report entitled Building the Clean Energy Assembly Line. But policy development alone is not enough. We also need organization, grassroots political organization that mobilizes millions of citizens in support of those efforts. Policy that stays in the hands of a few politicians, of a few senators, that doesn't become a mobilization tool for millions of people will never work. So we spend a lot of our time educating and mobilizing our 8.5 million members through demonstrations, town hall meetings, roundtable discussions. Our members write thousands and hundreds of thousands of letters to their senators urging change, making phone calls, and we insist that actual union members engage in this activity, not just their leaders. Thirdly, grassroots organizing itself is not enough either. We need actual legislation to go forward and create both regulation and change in law. And in that regard, we were leading advocates of the so-called stimulus or American Recovery and Reinvestment Act a little over a year ago. We succeeded in having over $80 billion of federal investment in clean energy projects, the largest single investment in a generation in the United States in clean energy to try to proceed in making the clean energy economy a reality. But legislative action alone is not enough either. We also need to have accountability of politicians and public office holders. So after votes have been taken in our Congress, we worked very hard to try to praise those politicians who took strong, courageous stands in favor of the clean energy economy, and we took equally strong positions against those who opposed us in order to make it a political issue around which our next elections would be conducted. And you can see in this slide the kind of political ads we ran showing how ordinary workers could profit from getting the jobs in the clean energy economy. And finally, the last step in our virtuous cycle is to engage in actual political action to ensure that in the, for instance, this case, the 2010 elections, that those who opposed us actually are defeated in election, and we pursue in electing larger majorities in favor of these policies. So in summation, I would say that what we have learned over the experience of the last 30 years is that we now live in a resource-constrained economy in which a low-carbon future is demanding a common agenda from both labor and environmental organizations. Neither one of us can succeed in pursuing our core purposes without merging those core agendas. We can't have long-term jobs that destroy the environment. I think that's a proven fact of today's global economy. And likewise, we can't have good jobs that are not also environmentally sustainable. The Blue-Green Alliance has also started working with some businesses, some companies that believe that we are living in a historic moment of the global economy in which there will be ultimately winners and losers. And those that throw in on the side of this new industrial revolution will be the survivors, and we intend to form alliances with those companies pursuing that agenda. But fundamentally, I believe that the role that unions and environmental NGOs can play is by forming the basis for a new global social movement that can succeed in this endeavor where singly and alone we cannot survive.